What's up, posers? Justin here. Just wanted to give you a little note at the beginning of this episode. We did have some difficulty with our recording software, and we dropped out for about 30 seconds to a minute during the part of the show where I explained the Patreon. So I'm giving that to you here right now. This week's episode is a Patreon-sponsored episode, and if you would like to subscribe to our Patreon and choose the album we devote an entire episode to, go to patreon.com/punklautopod. For $10, a one-time donation, you get to choose the album we devote an entire episode to. And also, we lost our producer credits. So here are the producers. If you would like to become a producer of this show, sign up for the $5 tier and you will get your name said every week here on the show. So this week's episode is brought to you by Phillips Booker, Dave Brown, host of the podcast One Band, Five Songs, Steve Long, host of the podcast Rebel Rock Radio, and Jason W., writer of the newsletter Songs About Chocolate and Girls. And that covers that, so enjoy the show.
You know what really makes us mad? Is wasting money on CDs with only one or two good songs.
Yeah. Tell them about punk.
What's up, posers? Welcome to Punk Lotto Pod. I'm your co-host, Justin Hensley.
I'm your other co-host, Dylan Hensley.
And this is the show where we choose one year at random and select one punk, hardcore, emo, or punk-adjacent album from that year to discuss. Except for this week, we have been assigned a record via one of our patrons, and we'll get into that more in a moment.
Yeah.
I'm preempting any negative reviews before we could even get into it. If you love this record and don't want to hear someone talking bad about it, turn it off. Don't listen. Don't go write a review for it. Skip it. If you have a sense of humor and you want to listen to people, joke about a record you like, stay tuned. But otherwise, get out now.
Right. Grow up. This episode does need a disclaimer of this is not a record we would have picked ourselves. Certainly is if someone else was a guest and picked this record, we would do it, but we would probably tell them up front, we don't really like this record that much, historically speaking.
Yeah, we've done it before. We did the Smiths album. We did that with one of the members of the band, Peroxide Blonde. And we told him up front, we're not fans of this band. So he's like, but that's cool. He's like, I don't care. I'm open to discussing it. So,
yeah. So, and, well, all right. Everyone's heard, everyone's heard this record. It's a cultural touchstone. We're getting into the record already. I guess we could save some of this, but just more in line with that disclaimer. It's time for some dissenting opinions. There's room for it. If you want to hear people talk about it, how much they love this record on a podcast, I'm sure you can find one. So
yeah, I'm sure they exist.
This is not that one.
So
we will try our best to be objective.
Oh yeah,
but going into it, we were like, yeah, I don't like this record. Has been my impression of it.
Yeah. So if you too want to choose an album where we have to give you a preemptive warning, patreon.com. We also have two other tiers. We have the $1 tier, which gets you access to all of our weekly bonus audio. And last week we did a bracketology on albums released in 1999, and pretty fun conversation. Little mix of, we got some metalcore in there. We got some Riot Girl in there. We've got little emo, a couple different things in there. So that was fun. And I've been promising it for a couple weeks now, but we will have a new Metalcore Chronicles episode up shortly, either before this episode drops or right after. Did not have time to do it last week, but that is coming very soon. So you can also join at the $5 producer tier, which gets your name set on the podcast every single week, as well as something you'd like to plug. We'll get into that later. And also gets you access to the Listening Club, a monthly group discussion that we get together and talk about albums. The first one we did was the week we're recording this. We discussed Bad Religion's The Gray Race, and it was pretty fun. So we haven't landed on our next record yet. I think maybe we should do something Halloween-y for October. So maybe soon to come.
2 by the Misfits. I don't know.
More to come on which record we're going to talk about. in October. But yeah, so this week's episode is a Patreon sponsored episode. This episode is brought to us by our buddy Justin, who previously has sponsored a few different albums, most notably Dillinger 4's Midwestern Songs of America, and I believe, yes, the FYP record that we covered. So Justin has locked in on a punishing angle when it comes to the Patreon tier, because this is now
he likes to assign stuff that he knows we don't like now.
We love Dillinger 4, so that was back in the good days. So we've somehow offended him, and he's decided to make us listen to FYP and this week's episode. Was there another episode? I feel like there was another album he selected for us, but I'm blanking currently.
I don't remember.
I don't remember either. Anyway, so yeah, the album we're talking about came out in the year 1999, and while we did discuss quite a few records that were released that year over on our bracketology last week, as usual, we like to take a look at the other albums that were released that same year. So if we look at RateYourMusic.com, punk albums sorted by popularity, it's our album that we're talking about today. It's number 1. But at number 3, we have an album we have previously covered, which is The Battle of Los Angeles by Rage Against the Machine. We covered that with the band Contact, and other albums from 99 we have covered. The Rituals of Life by Stretch Armstrong, Running Through My Bones by Tight Bros from way back when. That was that was sponsored by our Patreon. We have Clarity by Jimmy Eat World, and we did that with the band Orange Island. We did Short Music for Short People, the Fat Wreck comp. We did that with the band Talk Show Host. And we did some singles action on the year 1999. We did a 2-parter where we discussed an entire magazine. We discussed an entire issue of Billboard magazine.
That failed gimmick.
Yeah. We did Chaos Is Me by Orchid, as well as Angel's Curse Whispered in the Edge of Destiny by Envy. We did that with Paul DiCiccio of Tor Johnson Records. And we covered A Guided Tour of Chicago by the Lawrence Arms, as well as the Distillers self-titled EP with good friend Corey. So we've hit 1999 quite a few times.
We have. And there are a lot more records we could talk about from 1999.
Yeah.
That's a huge year. I mean, how many of the records that we talked about on the bracket that we just recorded were, I mean, there's at least 4 all-time favorite records, you know.
Yeah.
But just our personal favorites, and then there's stuff that, you know, we talked about that, like, is definitely really important, like Botch and, like, La Tigre, and, yeah, it's a deep year, I think.
Is 1999 also the year that people are like, this is one of the greatest years in film history? Isn't that, like, a theory that people have talked about?
What are the great movies of 99? Eyes Wide Shut, Magnolia, Being John Malkovich, Virgin Suicides. I guess there's some pretty critical stuff.
Yeah.
Boondock Saints has its, you know, cult following. Ghost Dog.
Yeah, it is considered like one of the best years in film. There's Google's AI overview says 1939, while others say 99 or 2001 are some of the greatest years in film. 39's got Gone with the Wind and Goodbye Mr. Chips. So that's the kind of era there. But yeah, I've definitely heard people talk about 99 being like the greatest year in film history. And then like, I think there's podcasts about it too. So 99
was Fight Club, Office Space. What else? Cider House Rules, The Phantom Menace. I don't know if 1999 is one of the greatest. I don't think that's the Iron Giant. People love that movie.
Yeah, people do love that movie.
The Bone Collector. Showing.
I feel like that is a movie critic who is of a certain age who would be saying that 99 is like the best year for movies, or a casual, like a non-movie critic who's like, what are you talking about? Fight Club came out that year.
Yeah, a Fight Club fan would say 1999 is the best.
Fight Club and The Matrix.
And Boondock Saints.
And The Sixth Sense. A big year, an important year, but maybe not actually the best year. But this isn't a movie podcast.
The Johnny Depp Sleepy Hollow. Yeah, but there's a lot of notable stuff from 99. So, yeah, I kind of see it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think they talk about it too being just like it's a big year for directors too. Like there's Eyes Wide Shut is that year, and
Yeah.
there's like a Scorsese movie that year too. Yeah.
And Wild Wild West, of course.
Oh,
that's
Cinema.
why I get it now. That's why.
That is capital S cinema. 1999 for music, though, is the year of Enema of the State by Blink-182. Cool. God, we need to do a Blink-182 record one day. We've said it before. This would be a prime example of one that we would do a disclaimer at the top if we were to cover it. We have the White Stripes self-titled record. I don't think anyone in 1999 was buying that album. This is a retroactive, clearly, because I even looked at the track listing on that one, and I'm like, I don't know any of these songs. What are you talking about?
I know them because I heard them, but it's not hits.
Right. There is the Pinback self-titled record, which I did a whole series on the Pinback discography, on Challengeography. Excellent record. We're coming up on spooky season, and Famous Monsters by the Misfits was released that year. Should we do that for the listening club?
I feel like we could do that on a main Halloween episode.
We do need to do a Michael Graves record, despite Michael Graves sucking as a person. But
Yeah. I think generally speaking, most members of the Misfits stink.
yeah, I mean, Danzig is like one of those like lovable ones, lovable dumb guys.
I don't know. Fake pandemic Danzig.
Yeah.
COVID denier Danzig.
Getting kicked out of his own movie screening Danzig.
I put my model girlfriend in my movies.
She wears mesh shirt tops with nothing underneath when we go to WWE Monday Night Raw. Apparently, side note, what's his name? Old American Records. Jesus Christ, what am I blanking on his name for?
Rick Rubin?
Jesus, yes, I was having like a brain fart. Yeah, apparently Rick Rubin shows up every single time the WWE goes to LA. Like, he's a big WWE fan. So he probably brought Danzig with him? I don't know how that happened, but...
I don't think Rick Rubin hangs out with Danzig anymore.
You think Danzig showed up because he knows Rubin goes to Raw?
Trying to fight
he's
him.
trying to get him to come back and do another record with me.
I need to. It's the right time of year. Probably should go pour out some kitty litter at the Danzig house.
Okay, 99. Also the year of Poison the Wells, the opposite of December, a season of separation. This is another one of those mathcore records. I wasn't sure if you knew this record, and that's why I didn't actually wind up including it in our bracket options.
I don't really.
Yeah, I think I've heard it once, so I won't know it well enough necessarily to cover it like that. But AFI's Black, Sails in the Sunset.
That's a good one.
Yeah, it'd be a good one to cover. We have Saves the Day Through Being Cool. So whatever happened?
Am I canceled? Saves the day.
Yeah, like they just stuck around, right? Did they deny it? Is that the move? Just
like wholesale ignored it
and move along.
They're like, we have enough fans.
Yeah. I don't know about that one, but all right. So this is a case of Rate Your Music being a really weird website and the type of albums that get highly rated. But if you look at some of the stuff in this like top 40,
Nemo.
Oh, we got Paradise Lost on here. Like, I know it's like gothic, but it's not the kind of goth that comes from punk, you know?
Well, it's weird that Today Is the Day record is so high up here, but I guess it's the one with Bran and Bill, or one of the ones with the guys from Mastodon, so that's why.
But yeah, we got like Kent and like Dredge and Mortician, I guess, because they have some grind elements to it. But yeah, like what is a Wicked Farleys, and why is it so highly rated? We have Waiting by the band Thursday. Guitar Wolf, your favorite band.
Never let that go.
I can't even remember. You just were like, oh, that's a really important record. It's like, I don't think anyone thinks that's an important record.
Guitar Wolf is important to certain people.
I guess. If you say so.
That important record, A Place in the Sun by Lit.
Sold a lot of copies, I'm sure.
Certainly popular, I guess.
Not a good record by any stretch of the imagination. It falls apart immediately.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, they have one good song.
Yeah.
Okay.
You still hear that song, though.
Yeah, it is still pretty well played. We have an early Under Oath record, Act of Depression, when they were still like a metal band.
Yeah.
That band has the weirdest arc. They like, Under Oath started as like a black metal influenced like metalcore band, and then they turned into a scenecore, post-hardcore emo sort of thing, and then they turned into like a Norma Jean knockoff after that. Just weird career. They've also had like a billion band members, so that probably contributes to it.
And then they do like, I feel like even later stuff. Like, what was Voyeurist? It had like a little bit of an industrial.
Yeah, I never listened to that one, so I don't know. I mean,
Yeah,
actually,
they
I've
brought
never
in a lot
listened
of
to
industrial
most of them.
influences later.
Yeah, accidentally rated the song, so that was fun. Just scrolling. We got Cattle Decap, Human Jerky, funny. Breach, the Swedish Breach, right?
Yeah, that's a good record.
I don't know that one. I know It's Me God, the one before, but I don't know Venom.
Yeah, I mean, I think all their stuff was good. I mean, Friction's a little rough, the first one, but
We have Very Emergency by the Promise Ring, The Gang's All Here by the Dropkick Murphys, Prayer for Cleansings, The Rain and Endless Fall.
A Dozen Black Roses.
I use a Prayer for Cleansing song intro for the intro of Metalcore Chronicles. I think it is the A Dozen Black. Is it the intro to that song? I don't remember, but let's do this. So the album we're talking about today is an emo record. So I want to pull up specifically the emo albums of 1999. I'll even throw EPs in there as well, just to get a little more coverage. So, Rainer Maria, Look Now, Look Again was released that year. Bright Eyes, Every Day and Every Night. The Ataris, Blue Skies, Broken Hearts, Next 12 Exits, which I believe I've listened to that one. Pretty good record.
The self-titled Plans Mistaken for Stars EP. When
Yeah.
they're still an emo band and not a butt
Yes.
rock band.
I was going to say, like, well, what are they going to be? They have, like, a new record coming out this year. One of the members passed away. I think the lead singer passed away. But I wonder what that record's going to sound like. Hopes Fall, The Frailty of Words. Kind of like Spitting. Nothing makes sense without it. Small Brown Bike, Our Own Wars. Enjoyable record there. Oh, The Juliana Theory. Understand This Is a Dream. Branston's Fallen Star Collection. Piebald, if it weren't for Venetian Blinds, it would be Curtains for Us All. 99 is a pretty good year for emo. Casket Lottery, On the Might of Princes, Farside.
Yeah, I think 99, it was building up. Emo wouldn't really make its pop, crossover until after pop punk had its run. I think that the pop punk radio play era lasted longer than most people would have thought, and maybe lasted longer than most people even remember. Like the Blink era of pop punk.
Yeah, there was this run. It was weird because, like, yeah, in the mid 90s, like Dookie and that kind of stuff gets radio play, and then like the other Green Day records after that, and then Blink-182 coming in. They were like releasing albums and having songs played on the radio pretty regularly, but like concurrently with new metal and like post grunge. So like the pop punk,
like your Sum 41 Simple Plan stuff, like that kind of was delayed a little bit.
yeah, that stuff feels like on the other side of new metal. Like, I mean, there's still, Korn songs on the radio in 2000, 2001, but they're nestled now between with like Fat Lip and Blink-182's later material and Green Day post 9/11 records. Well, that's 04, but the emo wave really starts to take hold probably in 02, 03? Once My Chemical Romance and Fall Out Boy like start to put out records, and I feel like a lot of those emo bands are more indebted to pop punk than they are the emo that came before them. But yeah, like looking at these records that came out, like it's a lot of like still pretty well critically regarded stuff, which I guess we should use to transition into the album that we're talking about today. And that is American Football by American Football. little backstory before we get into the record. This was sponsored by our buddy Justin, and we had discussed American football on a News of the World, I believe, around the time he thought to do this. Were we talking about the Airbnb? Yeah, we were talking about American football buying the American football house and turning it into an Airbnb. And then, like, because around the same time, like, American football was, like, teasing something new, too. And then, like, it was revealed that it's just a covers album. It's like, oh, weird. American football doing covers. That's what people want. But so we were talking about that, and he texted me and said, I am thinking about sponsoring an episode for the American football album, or the Meme House album is how he called it in the text. And I was like, you're going to get us in trouble. And then he sent us money. And so we had to do it. So yeah, we got the American football house as our topic this week. And before we get into anything about the record, we got a little voicemail.
Hey, podcasters. Joey here. You left me high and dry. Looking for money in my commissary. I don't see nothing. Probably gonna send me some cigarettes or some shit. But that's okay. I got this prison wine, toilet wine business going on, and I've been raking in the dough here. Hey, hold on for a second. I'm talking here. No, I know you want to talk to Shanice. This kid don't even look like you. That's not your kid. Okay, give me a minute. Sorry about that. So anywho, been making all this money off this toilet wine. So I sent you a couple dollars. Want you to review an album. I ain't never listened to it. Never heard of it. But I'm hearing you never heard of this, Twinkle Twinkle emo, I don't know, house with a light on band. You don't like it. So I'm gonna make you listen to it. So, this one's on me. Next time, you send me some cools. Okay? And we'll be even then. So you two, you do your nerd shit. You talk about your whatever, twinkle, emo, I don't know. I ain't gonna listen to it. That's your problem, not my problem. And, okay. And we'll see what kind of show you got, and, hope you get a beat down from it. Okay? And, we all win that way. So, you take it easy. I'm getting out soon, so you better watch out. I'm gonna fuck you both up real bad. So, alright. Take care, and this one's on me. Okay. You take care. Bye-bye. And, while you listen to that bullshit, I'll be listening to Mad Ball. Take care.
So this actually comes by way of Johnny.
Yeah.
So I guess he just had Justin send the money for him.
So it doesn't feel like he cares at all about what it is that we're talking about. So
yeah, we dropped the ball on the cigarettes. We'll get you covered. We'll take
Cools. I didn't know that they still made Cools.
Maybe they make them exclusively for prisons now.
He said he's getting out soon, though. I don't know. Maybe we can put in a call to the parole board.
Well, yeah, we could definitely play them that recording of him threatening to beat us up. So we'll see.
I don't know.
That wouldn't be very prison abolitionist of us, though. It might not be consistent with our politics.
But he's threatening to beat us up, but he wants us to send him Cools and cigarettes. I don't know, man. It's kind of backwards. I don't know. Is it reverse psychology going on here? Like, I don't know.
It's a tough love kind of relationship, I think. Well, good luck Your remaining days in there, Johnny. Watch out. Don't hog the phones.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I don't know that you're getting out on good behavior, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So we won't speak to the parole board. We'll you send us the money. We'll call this even. Okay. So, all right. What do we do with this thing?
Well, I mean, let's do it. I mean, let's just do it the way that we normally do.
Let's do it.
What are the stats?
All right, let's get into the stats. So, American football formed in 1997 in Urbana, Illinois. I've seen it also listed as Champaign, Urbana area. I assume they're just really close together there. And this was released September 14th, 1999 on Polyvinyl Record Company. Did not know they had a long name like that. And the person on this record is Steve Lamos on drums, percussion, and trumpet, Steve Holmes on guitar and organ, and Mike Kinsella on guitar, vocals, and bass. The album was recorded by Brendan Gamble, who had recorded with Braid prior to this record, and would later go on to produce Planes Mistaken for Stars, Branston, and albums by Black Cross, which is, weird, the Pattersons from Louisville. Prior to American football, Mike Kinsella played in the bands Cap'n Jazz and Joan of Arcadia. And Lamos was in the Firebird band with Chris Broach of Braid fame. And in 1999, Polyvinyl also released Raina Maria's Look Now, Look Again, Aloha's The Great Communicators, Paris, Texas's So You Think It's Hot Here, and Braid's Please Drive Faster single. So yeah, that is the little bit of the backstory of the record, and we'll get into more about that later. All right, what is your experience with American football and this album?
So I was just looking at my Last FM plays for American football because I was trying to recall when I first heard them. And I first heard songs from this record in 2009, which makes sense because I probably had downloaded some Cap'n Jazz stuff in early 2009. And so I was probably just kind of like branching off from there and just like generally interested in like Braid and, a lot of the other Midwest emo stuff from this time period. And I listened to, it looks like I listened to about 4 songs and dipped out.
So even in 2009, you're like, nah, this ain't for me.
Meh. Yeah. Maybe listen to like a song or two. I would have heard stuff, after that point. And then it looks like the last time I listened to the Meme House record was in one time I listened to the album in full in 2014, and I have not touched it since, according to my Last FM.
Yeah.
Data,
so which
is probably pretty accurate.
So you were that into Cap'n Jazz in 2009 that you were like, yeah, I'll listen to the other stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I was just generally interested in, like, there was like stuff like Algernon Cadwallader and, those bands were starting to take off, and I was like, yeah, I was interested in that stuff. So it would have been a natural progression to just check out American football because people would have been talking about that on Tumblr or whatever. And I just would have seen the member association to Cap'n Jazz. So yeah, I don't know. I checked. I had forgotten that I had given them a listen that early on.
Yeah, that's pretty early because that's even like before emo revivals. Like, I mean, there were a couple bands, but before it was like a wave,
Yeah, I mean, I was definitely listening to Cap'n Jazz in like 2009.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wonder what was going on in 2014 where you're like, I'll give this another shot.
I don't know why specifically I listened to it. I do remember listening to it around that time period, and it would have been most likely, let's see, 2014. It was September 2014. That's funny. It's been 10 years.
Exactly.
Holy shit. I got to look at the date.
Oh, man.
It was on September 16th.
Oh, so literally 10 years and 10 days.
Yeah. Since the last time I listened to this record from beginning to end. I may have been kind of looking through Rate Your Music around that time period. I think that's around the time period where I started to dig into Rate Your Music a lot more and would just kind of do like, I don't know, just check out records that seemed important. It may have been like an anniversary record prompt because it was released in September of 99.
Yeah.
I remember listening to that one record, or listening to this record that one time, and I think I've said this before, but it's just like the lasting impression of this record is like first song, Never Meant. I'm like, all right, kind of decent. And then it's like, I remember the trumpet starting, and then I just black out for the rest of the record. And then it was over, and I'm like, what? What was that?
I'm trying to think of when I would have listened to it. I definitely had listened to it before. I probably checked it out during that time period, during the emo revival, because Kinsella Worship was like a very big part of that revival sound, and probably listened to it just out of like, well, I guess I should listen to it, just to say that I have, like, and I have no memory of ever putting it on or listening to it. I remember the horn being a standout. I'm like, that's interesting, a horn in here, and that opening riff on the record being like kind of standout. In fact, that opening riff becomes like a musical meme almost at this point. Like, people use that riff in like TikTok sounds.
Yeah.
Like, they mash it up with other stuff too. So it's definitely like that riff is pretty legendary. But one of the things that I remember the entire time during the emo revival was when like they kept popping up. Like, it just kept happening where there's like, man, there are so many bands that like do this like noodly twinkly emo thing. And it's like, man, everybody is obsessed with like doing American football style, Kinsella Worship. And I liked some bands in that era that were doing some of that stuff. Like, I loved Snowing and blanking currently on like the other bands from that sound. I like that band Invalids, who was doing a lot of that kind of stuff. I'd say Castavet did a little bit of it, but they weren't doing whole hog Kinsella Worship. They were also bringing in like Casket Lottery, Braid, and like Hot Water Music influences on their stuff. But I definitely got to a point where I'm just like, once we got into like the third and fifth round of new bands that were doing the same thing, like, all right, Dads, boo. Prawn, boo. Free Throw, you blew it. Just snoozers, just all of them. Like, every band that was just like doing that, it was like, I was so over it, And I liked Snowing because they had still had like a punk edge to their song, so they were faster. Like, they weren't just doing the tapping thing. And like our buddies, Muslim Bone, they were doing some interesting kind of stuff like that. But they were like as influenced by the Anniversary, and like Get Up Kids. So yeah, the ones who were just doing straight up, it's all tapping all the time. Just those didn't do it for me. And especially the ones who were like, and we're gonna sing like them too. And I'm like, oh
Yeah.
So yeah, I just, even back then, like, I gave it a shot. I went, not for me, and then got irritated by the amount of bands who just like kept doing it over and over again, reiterating on the same thing over and over again. And the memes with the actual house memes, and just a lot of Kinsella overload over the years. And I don't even blame the Kinsellas. Like, that's something I want to make clear. They didn't ask to be copied that much. I'm sure they're like, wow, there's a lot of bands doing what we're doing. Maybe they might have been weirded out at one point, probably flattered, but they're like, we did one record back then and that's it. And people just can't get enough of it. So yeah, I just had a negative, just like, ugh, I'm so over this record, like a decade ago. let's talk a little about the backstory of the group. So Kinsella and Holmes, there are two Steves in this band, so I'm going to be going by last names, which had to have been confusing. Two Steves in one band, and there's only three of you to begin with. They were friends from childhood, and then later roommates in their college age years. And Kinsella played in a band with Steve Lamos called the One Up Downstairs, and they, according to Mike, he said that band broke up with their fists. So apparently there were like two other guys in that band too, and they were just a band that literally beat each other up, and that's why the band broke up. So that's interesting. Mike had already been doing Cap'n Jazz and Joan of Arc prior to this record. And so at one point, the two Steves wound up jamming together. So he's living with Steve Holmes. He played it with Steve Lamos. I guess they were just hanging out one day and decided to jam in their house. And then Mike was like, "Hey, I could add something to this. Like, this could be a thing." And so then they wound up becoming a three-piece. It was a two guitar and drum band. No bass in this band. They wound up recording a self-titled EP in 1998, and there's no bass on that record at all. And then for this LP, Mike winds up playing the bass for it. The band's name came from a poster that Steve Lamos's girlfriend saw that said, "Come see American football, the most overpaid athletes in the world." I don't know what kind of poster this would have been. Where was this poster hanging? I don't know anything about this poster. I should have looked up to see if you could find that. But, like, who made this poster? I don't know. Very weird thing to make. This is like a handmade poster. That I would understand.
Yeah, probably.
And so they record this record. They put it out on Polyvinyl Records. And then they wind up playing live for a while. And then they decide, we're just going to make this like a studio project only. But then they just usually agree to dissolve it and just stop doing it. So that's kind of it. They're, Urbana guys who played in other bands, just by happenstance, just like recorded a record and played some shows. And I guess I think they said it was because Mike was like wrapping up college. And so the idea was like maybe he's going to move on and do some other stuff. That's kind of why the band wound up dissolving. And Mike Kinsella does wind up doing like other things. He does Owen. I think Joan of Arc releases stuff during this entire period. I don't think Joan of Arc ever. Let's see if I can find like the run. I think Joan of Arc is like still an active band. Yeah, they have. Jesus Christ, how many fucking Joan of Arc records are there? There are 22 Joan of Arc records.
Yeah.
From 97 to 2020, most recently.
And
That's
no one cares about them.
The most active band that I guess Mike was only okay. That's because it's Tim's band.
Yeah.
There's too many Kinsellas. There's three Kinsellas. There's Tim and Mike. They're the brothers, right? And then Nate is the cousin. Mike just played drums from 95 to 99. So okay. Mike's a drummer then? What the hell? What did he do? All right. What was he in Cap'n Jazz? Was he the drummer in Cap'n Jazz too? Yes, he was the drummer in Cap'n Jazz.
Tim was the singer.
What about Owls? Owls, he is the drummer. So American Football is the only band where he's not the drummer in the Kinsella. He did vocals for the Nicked Rakes, which that's nothing. That's not a real band. Lies. I don't know what there's only two people in that one, Mike and Nate. So that's a fairly new one. That record came out in 23. One Up Downstairs was just one EP, and he was in There as well, playing drums. So mostly known for being a drummer, yet he is the American Football guitarist and singer. Very interesting. Weird. So this was just like a one and done band,
He was the Owen guy too, right?
Is he the Owen guy?
Mike is the Owen guy.
Okay.
And Owen has a fuck ton of records too.
Oh, I see. Ray Music had it listed. I see. So it's like members of, it's got all the bands there, but then if you go further down, it goes also known as Owen. It's like
because Owen's really a singer-songwriter project.
Yeah. So he starts Owen right away. Owen starts in 01.
Yeah.
They break up in 2000. He starts Owen like a year later. Okay. That makes way more sense. So between Owen and Joan of Arc, that's really what he was doing. Well, no, he was only in Joan of Arc until like 99. So really Owen is what he's doing the whole time. So yeah, the Kinsellas really confuse me. I never know which one is which because I think all of their bands sound the same except for Cap'n Jazz. So yeah, the record comes out does well. It gets like college radio play, but isn't like a huge seller at the time. Polyvinyl is a known label at this point. You know, they did the Raina Maria record the same year. They have some other stuff by them. The Kinsellas coming out on the label. They're not huge. They're just like, hey, there's this band. And like the people who hear the record, a lot of them like it. And that's kind of it. Like that's the story kind of ends there and they break up until they become a cult band. They become a Tumblr.com band. The amount of times I've seen the American Football House scrolling through Tumblr, it's mind-boggling. Like I can't believe that many people were just listening to American football. Like everyone, like just scroll and scroll. It's all you're always going to see somebody listening to American football and sharing a song. So they wind up becoming this cult band and then being this like super influential record on the emo revival. But why?
So I think Owen did kind of well. I've always thought that American football got a little bit of a boost from Owen doing well in the early mid 2000s and people being like, oh, well, let me check out the other stuff that he did. Like just branching off of that. There's so much like member association, and Cap'n Jazz is definitely like remembered for being a pretty important band just within the context of Midwest emo. And American football, like, yeah, it's like a one-off project side band that didn't last very long. So like I get why people listened to American football, why people checked this record out. It was part of a relatively short-lived subgenre music scene. There's just so much association with like Braid and Cap'n Jazz and Promise Ring and, you know, just like all of those bands at that time period that it makes sense that people would want to listen to something that's related to them. So I've always understood why it was something that people heard, but to me, and why I listened to half of it and bounced, it was just like, you know, there's other bands doing this that have like other things going on. There's more to them from this same time period that are more important. And like to me, it was just like, oh, this is just part of the context. And that's why you maybe check it out. I'm not sure what specifically made this record the one. I know it's at a certain point it hit a tipping point of just like memification, and now that sustains it. You know, that's been sustaining it for like almost 10 years at this point. But that initial like rise in popularity, I don't know what it was. I don't know who specifically was citing this record as like an influence. Maybe that's what it was. Maybe it was the Algernon guys were like, oh, you should listen to American football. That's my favorite.
But honestly, Algernon sounds more like Cap'n Jazz than the American football. Yeah. Like most of like the first ones, Cap'n Jazz seemed like the more important to shaping what emo revival started off as. I mean, I guess that was the case. Like they were like, yeah, Cap'n Jazz, and then they're like, oh, if you like Cap'n Jazz, you should check out, because there's not a ton of Cap'n Jazz either, you know. So I guess it's like if you want to hear more, check out American football, because American football is probably the second closest Kinsella project to Cap'n Jazz sonically.
I mean, the first couple Joan of Arc records.
Are they like that too? Are they noodly?
Yeah.
I've never listened to a single Joan of Arc record in my life. Same goes for Owen. They look like the most boring thing in the world.
Owen is like singer-songwriter, chamber folk.
Yeah.
Red House Painters worship, you know. But yeah, Joan of Arc is in the same vein of Cap'n Jazz.
Okay. It is funny to me that like the shortest lived projects are the bands that people care the most about from them. Like Cap'n Jazz and American football being the thing that people are like the most, but it's not what they've devoted most of their lives doing. Joan of Arc and Owen are. Yeah. So, I mean, I guess it makes sense if you're following Polyvinyl Records and like you're digging what the Kinsellas are doing during the 2000s. I could see being like, I like Cap'n Jazz. Let's get into American football. So I could see how out of those catalogs of records, those being the ones that stand out the most. So it kind of makes sense. It's when it became like this, it became a meme. Like the existence of their name, the album cover, and their sound, just like meme music, just reiterating on the same type of idea. Let's get into the actual record. So I listened to it twice this week to get ready for the show. And my biggest takeaway from the record is there's some okay ideas, there's some cool ideas, but otherwise the boring is record. The record is boring. It's 40 minutes long, it's too long, and most of the songs are too slow and boring.
Yeah. I would agree. I put this on and I was just like, all right, it's been 10 years. Let's give it a try. I wanted to be surprised by it. I'm not mad. I'm just disappointed. But I put it on. I'm like, it was kind of cool weather. I was like, all right, this is right. It's right. The right environment. It's been a while. Let's reevaluate something. You know, I've been surprised already this week by revisiting something. And it's like, give me something different to chew on this time. And I was thinking, like, you know, I feel like I've matured as a person in my tastes. I can appreciate a lot of music that I would describe as boring. And Neverment is fine as a song.
Yeah, the opener.
I get the meme at this point, but I don't think that it's that much of anything to come back to as a song. You know, it's not that good. and the thing is, like the general consensus, people love the first 3 songs on this record. I don't think the majority of people who listen to this record love the middle of this record.
The middle is actually the weakest part.
Yeah.
So yeah, Neverment kicks the record off. It's got the riff, and great riff. And in fact, Justin texted me. He says I love that opening riff, and then immediately as soon as that riff is over, I fall asleep on this record. And yeah, great opening riff. Great opening riff. And it's been copied
a
million times to the point where it has reduced the impact of that opening riff. You're like, oh, okay, that's what everybody's doing. That riff.
Well, and I mean, even just literally that song's been played so much.
Yeah.
You've heard it so many times that it's just like, this doesn't have any impact on me now.
Summer Ends is the next track, and this is where the horn appears for the first time. So that gives that song a little bit of a boost. That, you know, it's oh wow, we got a horn in here. That's interesting. That's a little different. It's got some bongos too. Like it's not full drums. And I like the rolling kind of drum thing towards the end of that song, like the rolling snare thing towards the end of that song. I mean, it's okay. It's probably better than the stuff in the middle of the album.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty. You know, it doesn't sound like it. I see the appeal of that song.
Mm-hmm.
I ultimately don't really get hooked by much of anything. The trumpet on this record, frankly, I find cloying more than it is interesting. I don't think that the playing is particularly inspired. It's definitely pretty amateur trumpet playing. You know, the tone is just pretty sad trumpet, mellow tone. There's no crack to it. There's no, I don't know. Trumpet can be very exciting. And I think drum can be very moody and expressive. I mean, I'm not a Miles Davis fan, but like that's the direction to go. And it's, they don't have those chops, I guess, but it feels too much like, well, I can kind of play trumpet. Yeah, put that on there.
I do think there is one other standout on the record, and that is honestly the third track on the album. It is over 6 minutes long, so that's a negative in its favor. But listening to it, it kind of unlocked something for me. This song sounds a little like a Pinback song, and it made it make sense to me why people were calling Pinback an emo band at this time.
Oh, yeah.
I'm like, oh, because this other band was doing like a similar thing. It's not really emo music, and which then also led me down the path of this isn't really an emo record either. It's a math rock record,
Yeah.
with some emo in it.
Maybe even a post-rock record
Yeah,
to some degree.
yeah. So I enjoyed the song honestly, just because it reminded me of that.
Yeah. When
And-
that song started, I was like, oh, okay, here we go. Because it's got it's one of the faster songs.
Mm-hmm. And like
Uh,
even like one of the harder songs towards the end of it too.
And it has that cool bass, kind of like ascending, descending, do riff. Like it was like that's interesting. This is going in a direction that I didn't remember this record really going,
It's because they don't do it again.
because they don't do it again. This is why I don't remember it.
Yeah.
And I was like, I kind of like this. But then like the latter half of the song, I was like,
Yeah, it gets a little like
I don't
drony
like
almost
this
towards
that
the
much.
end. Yeah.
I think they could have capped it here. I get what they built up to, but then I think they just dragged out that build up for too long.
Yeah.
It loses the energy that it starts with.
I do think the closest they get to that again is But the Regrets Are Killing Me. That one also kind of had a similar sort of pinbacky sort of intro to it, but it also has like some like acoustic guitars in there as well. I do like that weird riff on I Should Be Leaving Soon. That riff that sounds like a convenience store alarm when you walk in. It's just like or like an old Nokia ringtone sort of sound. And that one has like that real big, like buzzy bass tone to it too, where it's just like they're real light on the holding the note. So you hear all that buzz on the fret.
I think the drumming is pretty interesting on I'll See You When We're Both Not So Emotional. It's definitely one of the more upbeat songs on the record.
Yeah.
But it's math rock drumming.
Yeah.
It's like pocket drumming. It's like those are lots of ghost notes. That's cool, I guess.
So I was like, this is not an emo record. And it just influenced emo is really what happened there. Like, this is definitely more mathy. And I was looking at the like references and inspiration that the members of the band were pulling from. And I want to get it because there was actually a decent list of everything that everybody was, because each member was kind of into a different thing at the time. And I'm trying to get that pulled up here because it was too long to write down individually. So there was there's an interview with Steve Holmes, and he was talking about their sound and influence. And I'll read this, and it kind of gives you an idea. So with this band, we really did make a conscious shift away from the post-hardcore emo whatever sound and scene that we had come out of. Freshman year, I was turned on to a lot of bands that would influence our sound. Nick Drake, Red House Painters, Elliott Smith, Codeine, The Sea and Cake, The Smiths, Morrissey, Slowdive, My Bloody Valentine, Can, and Steve Reich. Mike always liked the slow, sad, dreamy, pretty stuff, and I picked that up from him. Tortoise and post-rock bands like Slint were an influence. Lamos brought in his love of 70s jazz fusion via Weather Report and Miles Davis. I was also big into the Beatles and the Beach Boys, and lesser-known 60s bands and 90s bands that aped that sound. So none of the influences on this record are emo. Like, the influences are singer-songwriter, math rock, post-rock.
Well, the drummer being influenced by jazz fusion makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. But
And
I hear tons of slow
I can see
dive,
that he was going for that Miles Davis in the trumpet.
I hear a lot of like the slowcore stuff too, like doing the Red House Painters. Because like listening to it, I was thinking, I was like, I listen to music that I do consider what people would consider is slow or boring. Like I love Low and I love Arab Strap, and those are two bands who have incredibly slow songs in their discography. So slow is not an automatic like no from me, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I love Nick Drake. I listen to Bossa Nova records. You know, like I like Yo La Tengo when they do slow, noodly, cooing, pretty songs too. But I don't know if I'm just being contrarian because it's American football. But like, I don't have the same, like, I don't really care for Slint. I don't really want to listen to Tortoise, but I don't have the same, like, I mean, the Slint is a little bit memeified, but like, I respect Slint.
You don't listen to Slint, but you like Rodan and you like,
Right.
you know, June of 44, and those bands have slow songs too.
And I like, Shipping News. I like, related stuff. So I can even appreciate, I can even like stuff like, but the thing was, listening to this record, like one of the things that came to me, I was like, why is it that if a band like Unwed Sailor is doing the same thing, that I like it more than this? Or like a Don Cab.
Yeah. I think it really boils down to it's what you're picking up on that does, like tickle the brain positively and negatively. And this, it's the particular chord structures and maybe the tones and combined with some vocals, like very little to nothing not much on this record hit me in a way where I'm like, oh, that's cool. I like that. So it has to just come down to just the chord structures and like just the particular like notes that they chose to play, where those other bands you do like because it's just the type of riffs that they put together. It comes down to more of just like an individual person's playing, I think, more than anything, because logically I should like it. Like, I went into this record open-minded as I possibly could, which I do for most records. If it's a record that we're being assigned, I sometimes will have a negative opinion on the band, but a guest wants to do it. And so then I try and listen to it with as open ears as possible and like give it the best shot that it can. And many times I come away with maybe not being like a fan of the artist or even necessarily like a big fan of the album, but I do often come away with much softer feelings on the band. And I do think I came away with from this record with softer feelings on American football. I wasn't like hating every second of it. I wasn't just being like, oh, I wish this would end. I was wanting it to end because it was long. That was my biggest, like, all right, let's wrap this thing up. But
I broke it into 2 listens. Well, yeah, there was a 30-minute break in the 2 halves of this record for my listening. And it didn't make me like the back half anymore.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes a break does help freshen up a record.
But I mean, I would say my opinion on the band, I guess I don't really have anything against them.
Yeah.
They made a record that they felt like making at that time and really had no control over it becoming a cult hit.
Yeah.
It feels, so I guess this is like the deeper thing. I mean, like, the question of, am I being contrarian or whatever? Like, I connect this record to something that happens a lot. I mean, I think it's something that just generally happens culturally, but it happens a lot, particularly in independent arts scenes. And I mean, just music as being the bigger one, like where things get hyped and certain people make enough big claims about a record that other people follow along because they don't want to look like they didn't get it. And that happened a lot in the 2000s, and we kind of developed a music canon for indie rock. And this record in particular, to me, feels less deserving of its status than a lot of other records that I don't like. And that's essential. I think that's the biggest thing that really rubs me the wrong way. Is it's like I, upon listening to it, just kind of zone out. Don't really get much out of it. I don't think that they lean enough in the directions that I'd find interesting, and whatever. It's just not for me, and that's something I can, it's whatever. I can move past that. But it's the seeing it every day on the internet for like 10 years is grating. Like, that is naturally grating to just be like, wow, I thought that was pretty boring, and it's let's play the Neverment riff for a cheap laugh. And also just like has spun out a whole revival scene that seems like it will never go away.
Yeah, there was like a dip in the amount of records that were produced in that sound, but it never like went away entirely. Like the revival that started, let's say like 2009. Their revival like started then, and then like what was it? There's like a year in particular where people were like, and that's the year, like 2011 or something like that, I think is the year that people act like was the greatest year for emo revival. And that was when we had already checked out at that point.
Yeah.
Like, oh,
it's like,
what?
this is the same band over and over again.
Yeah.
Not even to like stress the importance of novelty or anything. Like, I don't even think that every band has to be super original. It's just, man, how many micro variations on American football can there really be?
And it's just weird to me that like this record became the one that was like the template for so much of it, because I understand not everything's for for every person. Subjected to art form, like all music is person to person. You're going to decide whether you're going to like or dislike something, and I understand that my particular taste in music and your particular taste in music don't line up with some of the more popular music. And it's not to be like this, I'm too cool for this kind of thing either. It's just whatever it is, I just don't like it. It just doesn't work for me. It's not for me. But you're right. When it becomes will you people please shut up about this record? It's not that good. Like, I get what people like about it. I do. I get people liking this style of music. I understand it.
I like this style of music. I don't think I like the most popular and most highly praised bands from this genre of music, but like, I like Jimmy Eat World. I like Mineral. I like Braid.
Yeah. I like Happen Jazz.
I like Happen Jazz. Yeah, actually.
Relevant.
I maybe don't love it and don't want to listen to it that much. I was thinking about this because we're in the middle of like the the overhype cycle for that MJ Linderman record.
Yeah.
And just being like, can we stop talking about this now? I mean, I can't believe I'm begging for the album cycle, the short span of an album cycle to actually kick into effect here. But I was thinking about, I saw someone tweet like the day or the week that record came out, like a day or two before it came out, where someone said, please be normal about MJ Linderman.
And they didn't.
And they were not.
Yeah. I don't know. It is weird. I also understand, too, that when something becomes really popular, it's just because that the most amount of people like it. So it doesn't necessarily mean that it is actually the best thing. It's just that it appeals to the widest base as possible, which is why so many times where like some of the biggest and most popular bands doing a particular thing you're not into, because it's trying to go for some, I don't know if it's trying to go for like intentionally going for like the biggest audience possible. I don't think this record is a case of them trying to go for the biggest audience possible. I think it's just whatever it is. It just so happened to line up with what the most amount of people agree with. So it's not a true a true quality decision, or it means it's like it's good enough that enough people like it. I don't know exactly where I'm trying to go with that, but I've always just thought it's like
it's the aggregate. It's the Rotten Tomatoes
right
certification. Yeah. It doesn't mean that it's the best thing that ever made. It's just that the majority of people had a good experience with it.
A positive feeling towards the record. Yeah. It outweighs the amount of people who had negative feeling towards it. So I get it. I understand that. It's the way, and it's just the way that we talk about music too. It's always been that way. Like that's how people always talk about music. The fucking Beatles, you know? Just like, some of the most beloved Rolling Stone magazine albums of all time. It's like, yeah, it's all like nothing truly left field. It's always just like, yeah, the most amount of people like this thing. And that's why it just shows up over and over and over. I guess it's the repetition that just gets annoying. Because really when I listen to this record and I think about what it is and when it came out and the reception at the time, it was these guys, Urbana guys, friends, bandmates. They came from another scene. They're like, I have some ideas for some songs. Cool. It's a jam session that turned into a band that lasted
2 years.
Yeah.
Something like
more or less. Yeah.
3 years.
Max. Yeah. And it was just because they were in college. They already had other projects that they were working on. They had some ideas. They got together. They played it. And like, that's pretty fun. And then they were like, here you go, Polyvinyl, who they already had a relationship with. What do you want? You want to do anything with this? And this is a time period where it was pretty cheap to produce stuff. You know, this was CD era for the most part. And why not? Let's put it out there. Because it was a label that wasn't like huge. You know, they were putting out stuff that was well regarded. But like, do you know what that Paris, Texas band sounded like that I mentioned earlier? You know Raina Maria is, because they wound up releasing multiple records throughout the years. And so when it came out, it didn't even seem like it was that. It was like well regarded, well received and reviewed. Some college play. They probably played locally. I doubt they did big tours. And it was just like a little time and place record.
And now they own the house.
And now they own the house.
Which I'm sure they're like, there's probably some degree of just like begrudging, like, we got to buy the house, don't we?
So there is actual reason for that. So apparently in 2023, it was going to be torn down. And so that's why there's like a whole list of people who bought it. It's not the band themselves didn't buy it. Like, right. It wasn't just them. There's actually a list of everybody who bought the house. The band announced they had purchased the American Football house pictured on the cover in order to save it from being turned into a condominium. But it was like them, Polyvinyl, somebody else, and like an organization all bought it. So it's like it's split like many ways by, I think there's actually a Wikipedia for the American Football house too. I feel like the house also became part of it. Part of the...
It's the Walter White house of emo.
Yeah, it's the Amityville horror house.
I'm going to go throw a pizza on the roof of the American Football house.
Yeah. The house still had tenants by the time it was purchased. So yeah, it sounds like the landlords were like kicking people out and they were going to knock it down and turn it into, condominium. Okay. It was purchased collectively with Polyvinyl Records, Chris Strong, photographer Atiba Jefferson. So I think that's the photographer who took the photo of the house. And Chicago-based Open House Contemporary. Not sure what they are, but so it was like, hey, we should save this house. This it feels historically significant. And if it were to be knocked down, torn down, I think that would suck. Like, even though this is not my record or my band or my album or anything, it's a landmark. Like, I'd feel sad if the Discord house porch was like knocked down,
Yeah. I mean, that's definitely more personal to me, but yeah, the American Football house being a subculture monument is one of the more charming things about the record.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, that's cool. That's cool for those people, for fans of that.
Yeah.
That they can go see that house.
Yeah, I would always want something for fans to be able to go see forever. I don't know how I feel about being turned into an Airbnb. I guess there is the element of people were just showing up. So it is very similar to the Breaking Bad house, where people were just showing up to take pictures at the house. And I'm sure the people living there are like, oh, God, here they come again.
I mean, the Breaking Bad house was like people on her property and, yeah, throwing pizzas on her roof, like
throwing
constantly. I mean,
yeah, the American Football houses, they just had to get close enough to get the angle.
Yeah.
Which is still pretty close. You had to be pretty close to the house.
Yeah.
It wasn't any of their houses either. It was just a house that was near where they lived, which I thought that was interesting. Like, it was nobody in the band's house. It's just a college townhouse, Yeah. So, I mean, that's neat. The house is a meme of its own, that's unique, really. How many album Well, most album covers aren't just photos, but like, yeah, it's a rare thing to have that kind of a thing be an actual physical place you can go to, you know?
Well, it's like the physical graffiti building
Oh, yeah.
in New York. It's in New York, right? Yeah.
Well, it's like the Amityville Horror House where they redid the window. They remodeled the outside of the house so it didn't look like the Amityville Horror House anymore because they were so tired of people coming up to it. And I imagine, like, as probably annoying as it is that people were coming up to the American Football House and like the Discord porch, being in a movie or a TV show, that's probably even more annoying than it. So I could see why. But then don't buy the house. I mean, I get the Breaking Bad house was their house first, right?
Yeah, she owned the house before. She lived there before. And it was like, I think like she had bought the house from someone in her family prior to that. So like, yeah, I mean, people obviously took that too far.
Yeah.
It was fine when you were just driving by and taking a picture of it. It's
Yeah.
just people just kept coming onto the property all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the Amityville Horror House, like, you can't see the windows from the road. I think you can only see it from, like, the actual backyard or something like that. So that was probably like, what? Oh, these people are in our backyard again, you know, just constantly trespassing. So they redesigned that one to look different so people would stop coming to see it. But then, like, they sold the house and then somebody redid it and put it back the way it looked in the movie, which is how you should do it. I imagine, like, the Haddonfield house from Halloween is probably another one. Though there's like a replica of the Halloween house in North Carolina.
The Halloween house is in Pasadena.
Yeah.
I've seen it. It's very easy to see from the street.
Yeah, it's like right there on the street. That one's probably not as attacked.
They kind of lean into it. They'll put Michael Myers in the window.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like during Halloween and stuff. So like they know what they have.
Yeah, the Breaking Bad house, it's them sitting in their lawn chairs outside of the house to make sure that nobody comes close. Like that's got to be a real shitty existence. Just sell it at this point, you know, but
Yeah.
you could probably sell it for more than what it's actually worth.
Oh yeah, easily.
You just got to sell it to probably an Airbnb because that's who would buy. So it makes sense, I guess, to like for it to be an Airbnb because then you can be like, well, come to the American Football House and spend the night in it. I didn't know this. So the band winds up reuniting in 2014. They are doing a deluxe reissue of the record, which features like live tracks, some like practice sessions, and that's kind of it. Like there's not a lot of extra material from American Football at that point. They put up the pre-order. The pre-order crashes the website. It's in that high a demand for the reissue. And the album winds up hitting the Billboard 200 chart at number 68. You know, 15 years after it was released. It becomes a Billboard charting album purely on a reissue. But the band gets back together, and then they release a new record. The 2014 album, it's just another self-titled, because I think all of their records are self-titled. The 2014 album cover is the inside of the house. So even they're leaning into the house. Though I don't know what the cover of the third one is. It's just like fog. So they kind of ruined the gimmick. They should have done something else.
Taken a picture of the toilet.
Here's the American Football toilet. Yeah, that it's like the inside and it's like a stairway and like a door. That's what the LP2 cover is. Which I'm like, LP2 cover should have been the view from the window. Like, you messed that up too. The stairs? That's not a famous part of the American Football House. The interior stairs? No. Give me an inside look from that window. That's what you do. Yeah. I don't know. It's everything about them.
And people don't like the reunion record. People like the third one more.
Really? Yeah.
But people don't like
Oh, yeah. They do not like. That's a low rating. 2.87. That's funny. That record came out in 2016, not 2014. That is hilarious. People are like, yeah, come back. And then they're like, oh, but not like that.
Yeah. Don't do new music.
No, we just want to see you. Which I think is really what everybody wants with a reunion. They just want to be able to see them because they haven't seen them before. Usually the ones who got to see a band the first time around are like, I've already seen them. I don't need to see the reunion. It's the ones who are like, well, I wasn't there. Give me the reunion. But yeah, it's very rarely like, give me new music. Or when you do, it's always like, that wasn't very good. Yeah. I don't know. It's just an overrated record, you know?
I didn't really. I mean, I guess my issue with the record has always been its ubiquity,
Yeah.
which reminds me of. Did you ever watch that Helvetica documentary?
No.
There's a line in that documentary where someone is like, why is bad taste ubiquitous? What I think of when I think of this record. I'm just like, I don't know. I don't get it. I don't get why it's so popular. Why this one is so popular. Midwest emo in general and those bands, I get.
Yeah.
Why this singular record from that genre that it's barely even really accurately representative of.
Yeah. I don't know. I just think it's purely the story of it, I think. But even then, it's not that exciting of a story.
No, it's not. It's not really a story at all. We made a record and didn't do anything with it.
Yeah. Because it's not even like a story like Botch, where it was like, no, this band made some cool records and they hated each other the whole time and they didn't have anything in common with each other except for Helmet. And then they broke up before they could really capitalize on like the success and the influence of their sound. Which I guess that's part of the story, is that like American football broke up before they could really capitalize on their influence, but not really, because they were doing other stuff that entire time. Like that's the part that is just like you're ignoring like 15 years of their careers.
Well, yeah, and they were part of a very active scene.
Yeah. I guess it's a combination of Cap'n Jazz and American football both being like short-lived, but like
Cap'n Jazz wasn't even really short-lived. They just didn't put out that much.
Yeah. Is it a case of just what if? It's like, well, what if is Owen? That's what your what if is. It's just like more stripped down, there's like an 06 record that's pretty popular from Owen. Like that's probably like the most well-known Owen record.
Yeah.
So maybe that's the one that's the closest to it sounding, but I don't know. I would think it'd be funny if there was like a American football style record in the Owen discography, but nobody cares because it's not called American Football. At Home with Owen. Yeah, it's just like singer-songwriter. So, I mean, I guess it's part of it. They're just like, we don't want singer-songwriter. We want math rock? Like, why is math rock the thing you want? There's like a billion math rock bands, too.
There's so much math rock. And I don't get that popularity either. I like some math rock, but I don't know. There's a fervor for it that seems disproportionate.
Yeah, I don't know. Why this album? Who knows?
Don't know. Didn't answer that question. I was hoping I would.
No, can't figure it out.
Didn't get any closer.
Nope. I don't
know. I neither like it nor dislike it any more than I did before.
And I don't even necessarily think it's like a bad album either. Like, I just don't care about it. I'm not excited by it. I mean, ultimately, I guess if an album does not excite you, then does that mean it's a good record? It's like, I don't know. It doesn't excite me, but it doesn't mean it doesn't excite other people. I think that Apple song that everybody's doing the TikTok dance for by Charlie XCX is an embarrassingly bad song, but people love to do the Apple dance, so
yeah.
Not to date this exact recording, but yeah, people just like stuff. I don't know. I don't know what it is. As an intangibility, you can't manufacture it. It's organic, So in that, I commend them for making a piece of art that has stood the test of time to the point where they were able to come back from it.
I mean, if there's anything to take from it, it's make whatever kind of record you want to make, and maybe it'll be something. Because it's definitely not a record that was made for the specific purposes of being popular.
Yeah.
It was honestly kind of sounds like it was a pretty low effort record. I don't get the impression that they slaved over it. It just seems like it was a organic process of working out some songs with a new band.
Yeah, they do talk about like, oh, we didn't even have names for these songs until like a couple hours before the art was finished, because we just called the songs like the B song, the C sharp song. Like they just didn't have names for the songs because like they didn't.
They named it after the tuning or the.
Yeah, because apparently every single song had a different tuning. Was also part of it too.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they're just like, all right, this one's in D, like, and then like nobody knew what the lyrics were because at the time they didn't have a PA, so all he did was just like yell them in rehearsal and practice. but like they didn't know what he was saying in those lyrics, which that's a common thing.
Yeah.
Nobody knows what what the lyrics to the songs are about until you either ask to read them or they come out on the record. You're like, that's what you were saying? Which I think people should ask. If you're in a band with somebody, I think it's fair to be like, hey, can I read the lyrics of these songs? Because I don't want to be in a band with somebody if they're saying some fucked up shit. So let me read them.
Yeah, I mean, just, I give lyric and chord charts, so.
Yeah. I mean, we didn't, when we were in the hardcore band together, I don't think we knew what you were saying.
About.
I don't think we did. I do think we did ask to read them at one point, though.
Yeah.
And I think we read them and we're like, these, I don't know what these songs are about, but
yeah.
They're not saying any. Yeah, they're hardcore lyrics. They don't have to act. It's more about just like the phrasing than anything. Yeah. I don't know. It's whatever. Yeah, it is. It was just like, yeah, we got this thing. We want to play some music. Okay, cool. We jammed, and then we came up with songs, and they were like, these are good enough to play live. And then they were like, these are good enough to record and give it to polyvinyl. And like, we're done. That's it. That's the whole band. That's the story of the band, American Football. And then for some reason, the internet became obsessed with them. It's like, if they hadn't broken up and they'd released as many American Football records as Owen or Joan of Arc records,
no one would care.
No one would have cared.
If they had kept going, no one would give a shit.
I think that is actually the case. No one would have cared if they'd kept going. They'd had probably enough of a fan base to keep, to stay active, but that'd have been it. One and done. And I think the album art and font and everything and that opening riff are doing all of the work for this record.
Yeah, I mean, I guess for certain kind of person, the alternate tuning thing is a big deal, which I think is one of the like more annoying influences from this record.
Yeah,
I think alternate tunings are mostly dumb. I don't know. You're not playing steel guitar. You don't need to tune a regular guitar to a chord. You're not, unless you're doing like art music.
I was gonna say
like drop tunings, that makes sense for the ease of like just barring the top 3 strings for those power chords. But and like I can kind of understand the double drop tunings where you drop the high E too. But even that's like, okay, Zeppelin.
I mean, I don't know. I have lots of bands who play with tunings all the time. Like English Beat. Dave Wakeling famously played with his tunings all the time, to the point where Pete Townsend can't figure it out. And like Pinback, to use a contemporary, they use all sorts of weird tunings all the time, but it is also just the two of them too. So I don't know. They also play their instruments like percussion. I don't know. I think it just became too much. Too many bands doing the exact same thing as American Football later. You want to rate it and get out of here?
Yeah, sure.
I give it 3 flat, 3.0. That's where I'm at.
I'd probably give it like a 2.5.
Yeah.
Just too much of a meh listen for me.
Yeah. Meh is really the record. All right. I think that will do it for us. If you listen to this entire thing and were mad at us the whole time, please don't leave us a negative review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. It's just a taste in music. It's not a big deal.
Yeah. I feel like we tried to listen to it and talk about it in good faith. I think that there's an inescapable amount of baggage to it that is going to come into play, and that is something I think people can't handle. That's very common. I see that a lot. That's a big part of the needle drop Fantano guy giving the MJ Linderman a low rating, that it's like people can't handle that he's partially responding to the hype of it. Hype does impact your listening experience for something, though.
Yeah.
When a bar gets set high, it really is hard to not compare it to that.
I do think we have entered this really weird, when people were talking about stan culture before, they was usually referring to like the biggest pop stars in the world, like your Beyoncés and your Taylor Swifts and your K-pop, BTS fan bases. Like that was who stan culture was kind of talking about. It's like, yeah, just don't say anything publicly bad about any of those artists, or else the K-pop fans are going to come for you in your mentions. which was like a bad, unhealthy reaction, but it was siloed into pop music. So it was kind of like, whatever. It's like the most popular music in the world. Who cares? You know, you're going to get those weirdos. But then it has infiltrated pretty much all other forms of music at this point. And now it's like, you can't be critical of a band.
Well, we got Poptimism. We got, you know, Pitchfork nerfing their rating system. You know,
yeah.
We got Good Dude Backed Hard. We want to take it further back of just being like, if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all. Like, I think you can deal with a little bit of.
Look, we weren't doing personal attacks on the guys in this band. And in fact, I think we were pretty positive on them in the sense of they made a record they wanted to make and it stood the test of time. That's really all it is.
Yeah. And
I even said, I don't think it's a bad record. I think it's a good record that I just don't like. So yeah, there is just too much of this, like when Foxing got that negative review in Pitchfork and everybody flipped the fuck out on Twitter about it. How you just don't get it. It's a bad faith review. Said it sounds like early 2000s indie festival music. And I listened to like some clips from that song and I was like, that reviewer nailed it. It did sound like Passion Pit and that kind of stuff. Like he nailed it. And even the band was like, look, because people were like going after the writer online that they had to go like mute their account. And the band was like, stop it. They were like, do not do this. Like, just a negative review does not, change anything about how we feel about this record. So yeah, it is weird. So I don't know. Anyway. Don't give us 1-star reviews because you didn't like our taste.
Or do it. I don't give a shit. It's a free country.
All right. Well, that is it. So thank you all so much for listening. Thank you to Joey Three Toes for using his precious dollars to get us to talk about a record he does not listen to.
Yeah, he's never heard it before. Good luck. I wish you continued success with your toilet wine business.
Oh, yes. The toilet wine. And keep on listening to Madball, I guess.
And look out for the Punk Lotto Pod American Football Toilet Wine line coming soon. Our collaboration with Johnny Three-Toes.
All right, everyone. Thank you so much. You can follow us on all forms of social media: Instagram, Twitter, Facebook at Punk Lotto Pod, Punk Lotto Pod, gmail.com, Punk Lotto Pod, patreon.com/Punk Lotto Pod. And yeah, I think that'll do it. So thank you all so much, and we will talk to you next time.
To order Punk, call the number on your screen. Rush delivery is available. Remember, this special offer is not sold in stores.